And good evening, everybody, on this beautiful Sunday evening where hostages have been released, 3 so far, and brought home to their wonderful families, and where things are looking brighter by day. What a great opportunity it is for us to live in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And we salute all of our veterans. As you can tell, I've got the most beautiful girl on the earth right in front of me.
Oh, thank you, honey. It's great to be here, everybody, with you all.
So how is everybody doing this Sunday evening? Well, we're going to give a shout out to everybody. I know there's some folks who are tucked away because it's very cold around the United States right now and many parts of the country. And so stay warm, grab a blanket, grab some hot chocolate, get some snacks, sit back, because we're going to talk crime. And there's just a ton of crime. And a shout out to all of our friends in Vancouver, Canada, across the pond, in Europe, over in the Pacific Islands, Hawaii. Let's not forget our friends in Maui who are still suffering, our friends in Los Angeles who have lost everything as well. But you know, there were more deaths in Hawaii than there were in Los Angeles. And man, just both tragedies and crimes. Many of those are crimes. It's going to be sorted through. We've got new members coming in. Thank you, Kate. We're so grateful for your membership. And we've got Ashley. So wonderful to have you here. We want to thank all of our mods. Teresa M., Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Miss Sophia, and of course, Laura. Without you ladies, we would not be where we are today. And we're so grateful to each and every one of you. And Karen, I know that Mom's in town here. Your mom's in town. She's watching. Hi, Carol.
Give a shout out to my mom. She traveled all the way from Michigan to be here with us. So we're grateful to have her.
Yes. And Shane, thank you so much. The survivors of Helena in North Carolina and Tennessee, out there on the East Coast, there's also still a tremendous amount of suffering taking place there. So hopefully we can get some relief to them at some point soon. Most definitely. I think the government as a whole needs to get involved in helping these families who have lost everything. And like Karen was saying, her mom's out here from Michigan. She dodged the snow and she's listening, and hopefully you've got a great smile on your face. She's in one of the other rooms, and Buddy's been keeping her busy, but he's over here now, sound asleep. So Karen, what in the world is on the docket tonight? And if it's your first time here, we just ask one thing, that you hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and make sure that, the standard issue, the bell, so that you get notified of everything. And hi from Melbourne, Australia. Hi, Lucy. It's great to see you. And also the amount of positive just amazing people that follow us. You have been so kind to this channel. In our comments section, every once in a while there'll be something off the wall, but that's to be expected in the human condition. But it's so nice of you for all the compliments that you throw at us, and some of them deserve, some of them undeserved. But a big thank you also to our subs, our members, not only here on YouTube, but in Patreon. We're grateful for each of you. So we wanted to give you some updates in some of the cases we've been following, and we want to talk about a little bit about the upcoming trials coming this year. This is going to be a very busy year, don't you think, Karen?
Yes, it's going to be so busy. The calendar is packed. So you guys take your vitamin C, get lots of rest, because you're going to be busy following all these cases. Many of them are now coming or will be coming to trial, to a courtroom near you in 2025. Lots of these are cases that we have been covering since the beginning, that have taken a few years to come wind through the judicial system. Some of them might be new to you. You may not have heard of some of them before, but we just thought, while we're still in January, just to kind of look ahead, kick off this year, and just focus on just what's on the court docket for these trials. Now, most of them should be, if not live streamed, then cameras will be available in the courtroom, or I shouldn't say available. There'll be cameras that will be allowed to be in the courtroom. And some we don't know yet what the extent is, how some of these judges are, what they're going to allow in, what they're not. But you can guarantee that you will hear updates from us on this show, on this program. And thank you, Pearl's Dream. Oh, thank you so much. We're grateful you're here. And shout out to Teresa M., one of our amazing mods. We are so grateful for you. Thank you. And so we're just going to just hit on some of the highlights. I want to just say up front, this is not an exhaustive list by any means of cases that are going to be coming to trial. And of course, all dates are subject to change, as we know as well. Chris, what were you going to say?
Tell everybody about Caroline as well.
Okay, so we're going out of order a little bit here. I do want to tell everybody about a really wonderful book that has just come out, and there's a link in our description below to Amazon to get it. Okay, so this book, it's a brand new book. It's just out. It's called Baker's Dozen. It was written by one of my dearest friends, Caroline Dipping. She is a longtime, well-established, amazing writer in Southern California. And I just want to say, this book, if you're looking for something that's not murder related, that is just a great novella. It takes place actually back in the 50s. And if you're familiar at all with Southern California, there's going to be a lot in the book that places and references that you will know, you will recognize. And it really is a wonderful book. It was based on the story of her grandparents, who ran an actual bakery for years in San Diego. And anyway, I highly, highly recommend it, to put it on your reading list. There's a link in the description below.
Hold it up again so they can see. And Caroline is an absolute dear. She's hysterical. And this book is hysterical. There's some great stuff in it. So
it'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. So I highly recommend it.
Okay, so this is not an exhaustive list that we're going to talk about tonight. But like you say, take your vitamin C, get lots of rest. It's going to be a busy year.
It really is.
Okay, so the first one, let's chit chat about a little bit here, and you guys, jump in here. Of course, it's going to be Alec. Alec Murdaugh is back. He's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Let me just jump in and say, we don't know if he's going to be coming back for a retrial at all, but the topic is being discussed in the true crime community, as you guys have heard.
Yeah. And so he has, Harpulian, Poot, has, these guys they've been nonstop, right? One of his co-defendants on the federal laundering charges, with the money, he got ordered a new, opportunity into the court system. And of course, the courts are now, the South Carolina Supreme Court has said, well, give us the motion of why you think you should have a new trial, and we'll see if we're interested in reversing and kicking it back down to give them a trial. Thoughts on that, Karen, as a whole?
I mean, just when you thought we were safe not to have to ever discuss this Alec Murdaugh again. Of course, there's so many tentacles with the story. Yeah, Alex and Poot, exactly. We've heard so much about how this guy is being treated in prison, the women who were writing to him, and this incessant can't leave it alone. Of course, a bunch of attorneys are continuing to work on pursuing his appeal, not just his appeal, but you remember all the hoopla with the court of clerk, Becky Hill. We had shows about that and videos about that. So, I feel like we're almost warning people like, hey, this could come back again. Not that we want to sit through a second trial, but we're of course watching this. I'm sure some of you guys will be following it too, about what the South Carolina Supreme Court and what the courts rule, even allowing him to have that retrial. Of course, we know it was a number of months ago. There was another judge, not Judge Cliff Newman. Another judge said no to the request after she heard the evidence, this whole alleged jury tampering evidence with Becky Hill, the clerk of court. And of course, we know she came out with a book that she ended up plagiarizing, et cetera, et cetera. So one lower judge has already said, no, not happening. So we'll see. We'll see. I think the different opinions about what his actual chances are of this coming back for a retrial.
Well, and what's interesting about it, guess what he's trying to suppress, right? They filed motions to suppress after suppression, but guess what the biggest piece of evidence they want to suppress if he gets a new trial? They don't want, I'll wait till some of the comments come in here because we'll see what everybody's thinking. So give it a second here. Yeah, exactly. Teresa's got it right here. The video.
Yep.
He wants that is like
for people who don't know, the video of him at the dog kennel that Paul took on his phone, literally minutes and seconds before he was killed. His son, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, Alex want that. They defense wants that out for the second trial. So basically, if that happened, of course, then you're not going to be able to put Alec there during just a couple of minutes just before the killing as a whole. And if you think about the brutality of that situation when it did go down, and the jury heard it, and the jury heard it in verdict. They said, yep, he's guilty, and they convicted him. So he's not an alleged murderer. He is a murderer, convicted murderer under the law. And so Poot and all the boys and, the game there wanted to say, no, we want to get rid of the video here. And that way, if they get it thrown out, then they're not going to put him at the kennel, and the second jury, if they did get a new trial, would not be able to hear what that evidence is. So I just think that's crazy. Okay, so we've also been in touch. Those of you who know Josephine Wenzel, and her daughter, Crystal Mitchell, who was strangled in 2016. The suspect, McLeod, fled to Central America. He was an ex-Marine. Remember, we had her on for quite some time. Karen, what are your thoughts on his trial coming up?
I think people will remember this case. Crystal Mitchell was the victim, and this guy was on her killer was on the U.S. Marshals list of most wanted. And so Crystal was strangled. This is what happened in San Diego in 2016. This was a boyfriend, and this guy takes off, flees Mexico, goes to Central America, and live disguised. I mean, I guess out in plain sight, maybe. The whole story about how he was down there teaching English as a second language, and people recognized him once media and word got out that he was a wanted felon, um, from the U.S. and on the U.S. Marshals list. And I tell you what, we had Crystal's dear mom, Josephine, on our show so much. She's part of the Cold Case Foundation. And that case, it was so
No,
gratifying.
she's not part of the Cold Case Foundation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Josephine. Yeah, that's
I
right.
thought Josephine was.
No.
Oh, I misspoke. Okay.
No, it's okay.
Sorry. Anyway, her dear mom fought valiantly for this case.
She was a detective in Guam, and
Interesting.
remember back in the day. So
Yeah. Okay. No, thanks for catching that.
mm-hmm.
And anyway, okay, so this Raymond McLeod, her alleged killer, is coming to trial in February in San Diego. And again, he's on the docket. Dates may change, but Josephine is going to be getting some justice with the court process and procedure with this McLeod's trial coming up in San Diego. We're going to be covering it.
Yeah, and her organization is Justice for Crystal, and so she also she has an organization about Angels Moms, and this woman, if you've never had an opportunity to see somebody who's driven, go back and watch her appearances about her daughter. Her daughter was brutally murdered by McLeod. They had gone to San Diego on a, quote, trip, and he ends up killing her while they were out there. And then he fled to Central America. And this mom went after him and discovered him down there after like a year or two trying to find him. And then finally she wrote a book and put it into all the gyms in Central America. And she went to, put out flyers. She did so much, so much to try to get her daughter's killer. And then ultimately he was spotted in a bar in El Salvador. And thank you. And long story short, they ended up hooking him up. The U.S. Marshals went down there, confirmed, yep, it's him. And lo and behold, they nailed him. And she sent me a text message when they got him, like 5 minutes after they got him, and with a picture of him in handcuffs. And to this day, now she's creating a foundation after the trial. She's an incredible mother. You're right. She's an incredible lady. And anyway, so that is Crystal Mitchell. And of course, the defense is always going to play, their thing where, it's the daughter's fault that she got murdered, right? I mean, what a joke that's going to be. And it's going to be really hard for mom to be sitting through that situation. She is a hero. She is a hero.
And she's also helping other families who have lost people to crime. And she's been doing that for years now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she sure has. Okay, another one in the pocket here coming up, or the docket pocket, whatever we want to call it. Stefan Sterns. What say you, Karen, about Stefan and his 35,000 photographs of essay of children on his phone?
You know, this is the Madeline Soto case. This was the beautiful 13-year-old girl from Florida who we dubbed the throwaway girl. She was murdered. First of all, she was essayed for years, and then she was murdered just after her 13th birthday. I'm sure you all are familiar with this case. Got lots of coverage. And Stefan Sterns is the boyfriend of Maddie's mom, live-in boyfriend, on again, off again, live-in boyfriend. And so the way Florida criminal justice is doing this is first they're trying him on the essay charges, of which there is a long list. Chris, tell us just for a second. You mentioned 35,000 images were found. We'll just leave it at inappropriate images, i.e., evidence, hardcore, indisputable evidence. And anyway, so he's being tried first in February on the SA stuff, and then he scheduled his murder trial for Maddie. The death of Maddie is scheduled for September.
Yeah, and poor Maddie, right? As Coco says here. I mean, this guy. They're going to bring him up on the SA stuff because I think they're trying to lay the defense, or excuse me, the prosecution's actually pretty smart here to lay the foundation into the community, the court of public opinion, that let us show you what he did before the homicide, and once that stuff gets out into the arena, into the public, I think everybody's going to realize just how much of an animal he is. And, with guys like this, I hate to say it, but there's got to be guys like me that, you have to treat them very carefully. If you come at them, and I think the detectives, the investigators in Orange County, Florida, the investigators that handled this, they handled him just right. I mean, just like putting butter on a piece of bread. And if you handle these guys correctly, you will get the information needed, i.e., where's the body, like they did with him. And ultimately, there were so many slip-ups and so many problems that guy had made that they were able to move him in the right direction. And unfortunately, as sick as these puppies are, and they are sick puppies, that you have to play the game. And that's how you get, inside, and you look inside the heart of the monster. And you realize, oh, it's black. It's very black. And so, with him, the SA stuff coming forward, in my opinion, is going to lay the foundation for the brutality of the homicide. And then everything will start flowing in the right direction. I know there's a tremendous amount of opinions about whether mom, should go down for the count, but they may have a strategy right now where they may need her to connect some of the dots. So I'm not sure what's going on with that personally, but it certainly does, raise some issues as well. I mean, there is evidence pointing to just how much particular knowledge she may have. And the other thing is his parents. I don't know what they did or did not know, but when you have 35,000 photographs on your phone of children, I don't know if you knew this, but most boys learn about their, about a discovery into SA world by finding stuff that they may have found with other male role models around them. And so that's something to consider, whether or not that's reality for him. Only the cops know that right now. Only the cops know that. And Karen, you coined, she was the throwaway girl. Why was that, do you think?
I just felt when I dug into this case and did research, looked at all of the documents and the evidence that Orange County Sheriff's Office in Florida and Kissimmee PD shared, it's like at every turn, Maddie, the victim here, it is almost like a perfect storm of what you never want to ever have happen to your daughter, a niece, a family member. And the more I dug into this case, the more I saw that at every turn, it's like, nobody was looking out. Nobody was her advocate, whether it was in school with failing grades. Nobody asked deeper questions. Whether obviously at home with her mom, her parents were divorced. And it seems like, she just, I don't want to say fell through the cracks, because blame does need to be shouldered by the community around her that failed her. Because how does a girl who's in school and, kind of a normal preteen, end up killed, her life taken after her 13th birthday by somebody that her mom allegedly by somebody that her mom brought into her circle of influence. So that's, and then of course, it was so tragic from the day she was reported missing. And of course, we know that, Sterns had allegedly had a hand in that. And then her body was found dumped, 4 days later, or by the end of that week. And he had thrown out her school bag, her books, in the dumpster, where in the apartment complex, or the condo complex where she lived. It was just like, how could a human life end up that way? How could this girl, who it could be friends with our children at school, or maybe we're teachers, maybe somebody like Maddie would have been in our class, or she's our next door neighbor, or whatever in our community. How does everything get thrown away with this girl? So it's just that phrase that kind of came to my head. I wrote a couple of articles about it over on our blog that you can, if you're interested, you can go look at later. But I want to make a larger point here about the suspect, the accused killer, Stefan Sterns. Let's not forget, this guy worked at Disney. This guy was employed by Disney, okay? And again, people can keep their secret life secret, but my point with this is he was exposed to how many children who went to Disney, how many, who knows, right? I'm just saying, to have somebody, a predator like this, who was clearly spending time grooming this victim. And I know Chris and others feel like there's going to be others besides Maddie as in terms of his victims. And how does this happen? Right? How does this happen? And so this case is so tragic. Listen, all these murder cases are tragic, by all means, but this one, I felt like the entire support system around Maddie failed her. And of course, this is an example of just how evil and dubious predators will be. And you always hope lessons are learned, but I always feel like they're never learned because there's always multiple more cases behind this. And, as a society, you want it to be instructive, but it doesn't end up being instructive. So at least we have, thank goodness it looks like the Florida criminal justice system is going to come down hard on this guy. Well deserved. And this is a tutorial for all parents, all caregivers, all teachers, everybody, that, what, maybe we need to ask some harder questions and just relate a little bit, forget policy and rules sometimes, and let's just go heart to heart with people in our circle. If there's somebody who is struggling, especially teenagers, of course, especially in this post-COVID society we're living in, I just feel like we all need to reach out a little bit more, but clearly the system failed Maddie Soto.
It sure did. And well said. Well said. And it's Misty Dawn's birthday, Karen.
Happy birthday, Misty. Woohoo. Another Capricorn, I think. I don't know, though. It might not be Capricorn anymore. But.
And by the way, everybody, I'm going to let a little secret out. It was Karen's birthday the other day recently. So she's 21 again.
All over again.
Again. Okay. Perfect segue into, not necessarily, Lori Vallow. She's back. She's back in the classroom, back in the courtroom. She thinks she's taking a class in law now, and she's going to give one. Thoughts, Karen?
So, okay. So everybody knows about convicted murderer, doomsday mom, Lori Vallow. So, of course, we know she was convicted of murdering her two children, JJ Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and Tammy Daybell. Okay, that is her fifth husband. Got to keep this all straight. Chad Daybell's previous wife. Okay, so as you know, Lori is now so an Idaho jury found her guilty of those three murders. There are others, as we well know. So she is now faced with conspiring in the fatal shooting of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. Thus, the Vallow name in the Lori Vallow Daybell lineup here. Okay. So the trial is scheduled for the end of March. And before we get into some of the more details, I just kind of want to explain to people. So Lori, in addition to being a convicted murderer of the three we've already talked about, she was allegedly involved in killing her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, and in the attempted murder of a guy named Brandon Boudreau, which was her niece's ex-husband. Okay, so that attempted murder and Charles Vallow's attempted murder not attempted, actual killing, happened in Arizona. So last year, Lori was brought to Arizona, where she is sitting in jail awaiting this trial. And if you haven't heard, she is representing herself in this conspiring in the fatal shooting of Charles Vallow, her fourth husband.
I gotta laugh.
Yeah. Yes. No, this is crazy Looney Tunes. So, yeah, this has everything. Okay. So I'm just going to jump in here for a second. The hubris of this woman, okay, who, by the way, is not criminally insane. No, she was not found criminally insane. She was found competent to stand trial in Idaho and now again in Arizona. And Chris, doesn't this feel performative to you? This is obviously narcissism run amok. And, she comes up with the idea, I'll just represent myself for this murder trial. And it's, obviously it's the Lori Vallow show. That's what she's looking for.
Yeah. So if we go back, I mean, if we just do a simple math problem here, right, hon? Where, in Idaho, they go, no, she's, the elevator's not going to the top floor here. Let's put her in the elevator repair shop. And they send her over to all the doctors who say, yeah, she's waiting for the Hale-Bopp comet and everything else to show up. So why don't we wait till it arrives, and when she realizes it's not here, we'll put her back into the public, i.e., back into the jail system. And remember, she did that. She went through that drill. And then now that she was convicted and she's out of that problem and she gets convicted, she comes to Arizona in Maricopa County, and there's what they call a 11 hearing, Rule 11 hearing, where in Arizona it's like, the elevator's missing a cable. And if the court says, yeah, Lori's on that elevator and we're just not sure if it's ever going to get lifted off here, so let's see what's going to go on. So I think if she plays this role correctly in Arizona, in Maricopa County, where she's appearing, she's already written a bunch of, appellate decisions in her head. And her narcissism, she thinks it's a reality TV show, but she's the she's
Well,
the,
when the judge in here in Maricopa County, Arizona, was asking her like, do you understand the legal definitions? Do you understand, all this? And she says, yeah, I've had experience in a murder trial before. As if, right? It's like, yeah, yours. You're you were never a prosecutor. You were never a defense attorney. I mean, the hubris of this woman.
the Shallow Vallow show.
It's perfect, Dan. I
Yeah.
mean, this is, folks, when have we seen this? Chris and I were talking about this earlier. When have we seen, okay, someone's tried for 3 murders in one state, okay? They're convicted. Oh, well, now they have to travel to another state and they're standing trial for additional murders. I mean, she's traveling the country, going from state to state, and
On tour.
she's on tour. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is, it's crazy. It's insane. It's as insane as everything we've heard about her in the first murder trial.
Lawyer Lori. Yeah, it's going to be. I'm going to tune in. I don't know about everybody else. I'm gonna just grab my popcorn and sit back and say, and go. I watched the hearing already.
Well, the one thing I will say, because Charles Vallow was killed in 2019,
Yep.
his family obviously deserves justice. They deserve answers. The system has to work. And so that's a 6-year wait. It's almost a 6-year wait. And so, we hope that family will feel like they get some justice at the end of this.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great point. I mean, it'll be a train wreck, but again, these victims get lost in this stuff sometimes, and it just drives me crazy. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'd like to say, but I can't. That said, well, and then let's shift gears for a second. Kara, any other thoughts on Lori before we shift gears for a second?
I think that's enough on her for now, quite frankly.
Okay, so then let's talk about Lori Vallow and Ann Taylor, seeing how they're both attorneys now. Ann being the real deal, and Lori learning from jailhouse lawyers. So Ann has filed the latest brief. Everybody's probably aware of it. That all this time, IgG and all of these other things need to be sealed. Seal it, seal it, seal it. So nobody knows what's going on. Unless I say it needs to be unsealed now, meaning Ann Taylor and her team. Because, you know, the cops must have done something wrong somewhere along the line. So this latest motion is, you know, she lays out all the IgG and investigative genealogy, you know, all that information. She lays it all out here and she goes, you know, hey, you know, how did the cops get this stuff? And I think what the public is missing here is when you're conducting an investigation, okay, what will end up happening here is the court's going to say, you know, this is really a nothing burger, but it's enough, you know, for Ann to continue. I have said from day one, those of you who have been on our channel here with us for a long time, I've said from day one, all of these motions that Ann Taylor is putting out there are nothing but poisoning the public's opinion. And in some, you know, cases it's working, others it's not, because of the gag order. If there's a gag order, okay, then what she's doing is circumventing a narrative in her own way through narratives. She's speaking to the public here. She's not talking to the court. Okay? She's talking to the public. And note here, he asked the court, I'm going to bring it up to the top. He asked the court to allow the pleadings and hearings be public. Okay? So now what's going on here is this motion is saying, look, where did they get this lead on this IgG stuff? Was it through, you know, these databases? Because there are really only two databases that the cops can pull from, but they can look at other databases. Think of it as a photograph, okay? You have a photo, and that photo, okay, you see on YouTube, hypothetically, hey, wait a minute. That looks like the guy. Man, wait a minute. Wow, let me look at this a little closer, okay? That's what data in myheritage.com, let's use that one as an example, or ancestry.com, okay? You got these professional genealogists out there that, and some of them work for the FBI now in terms of, you know, there's enough skill set out there where they go, hey, this information here could be worth something. Let's chase it down. And so they chase it down, and they're sitting outside of a house in Pennsylvania, and they grab a bag of trash, which under the law is abandoned property and very legal. Okay, very legal. And they go through this trash and they send it to the lab, and the lab says, hey, yeah, this trash in here is consistent with the photograph that you have. And in this case, it's a DNA strand. Okay, so the DNA strand is the photograph. It is not illegal, okay, to look at that DNA strand as a photograph against an open source database. Where she's arguing is, well, everybody else can do that, but the cops. The cops can't do that. Okay. Well, the cops did do that, and it's okay. So she's looking for an aha moment for the public to go, ah, right there. If that is illegal, which it's not, think of the photograph, okay? The DNA strand is a photograph, and it's on a public open source, website somewhere. And the cops, the genealogists go, hey, there may be something here. We've got DNA that's out there, and let's see if we're related. Remember that one? There are apps out there where you can sit, and hit the app and see if you're related to people around you if you've put your DNA into certain, databases. Okay. So, I mean, I have it. Karen has it. We have it. Those databases or those apps are all over the place. And guess what? I got second or third cousins, from this and this and that and that. I've never met these people in my life. Okay. But so what they did is they create this mini strand of, family tree. Then they chase that tree. And once they get it, then now they get the trash. And then it's when the trash says, hey, we're getting really, 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 really close here. Guess what they did? They got a warrant, and remember, you forgot about that part. You forgot to tell the public in this, suppression or this argument that you now want this, has a right to a public trial. Sealing a suppression hearing is a clear violation of this right to a public trial. Well, wait a minute. Weren't you the one from day one that at first said, no, let's open it up? And then you said, no, let's shut it down, shut it down, shut it down, seal, 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 seal. If you just read all of the Brian Kohberger stuff, everything is about sealing, but not this one. She wants an aha moment. And guess what? She's blowing out a light bulb. This is smoke and mirrors. She's doing her job. She's getting paid hundreds of dollars an hour. She's making her money. Remember, I projected she would make over $1 million on this trial alone. Okay. And so you got to give her an E for effort. She's doing what she needs to do. I've got no problem with that at all. Okay. But the public may not know her strategy and why she's doing it. It has nothing to do with the cops hiding or concealing anything. In fact, she's hoping that the judge won't see the truth to this, and he's going to see right through it. That's going to be my prediction. What say you, Karen?
What I find most hypocritical about all this is for the last 2.5 years, to your point, Chris, every one of these motions that she has filed is sealed. Everything is under seal. She doesn't want, his defense team does not want anything seeing the light of day or coming out. And I find it rich that in this motion, she writes, quote, and I'm going to quote from here, the public has the First Amendment right to know what goes on in its courts, end quote. Wait a minute. January 2025, that's what she's saying. But look at her behavior from the previous 2.5 years. She doesn't give a hoot about the First Amendment. And it just galls me. I get it. Defense attorneys are allowed to put this kind of language out there. But again, Chris is right. This smart judge, Judge Kepler, I think he's going to see right through this. You've got whatever, hundreds of documents that are sealed. You've got hearings that are closed to the public per Ann Taylor's request, and the prosecution went along with it. And now all of a sudden, when we're coming down to crunch time and defense witnesses coming through and the actual evidence, she now can sit there and say, oh, wait, this needs to be made public. The public has a right to know.
Yeah, that's a great point. And she puts
ridiculous.
She puts it right here in the conclusion. Well, first of all, she forgot to say, Your Honor, we know we're under a gag order. But I'm going to circumvent it, which I have been doing for quite some time now in these motions, to create a dialogue out into the public. I mean, we're talking about it tonight. Okay. So, great strategy for her. maybe the controlling factor in the courtroom, i.e. BK, is playing the game here. But it's interesting in here, to your point, Karen, she says right here, and the public has a right to know. Well, wait a minute. According to the whole strategy, to what you just said, the public has not and does not have a right to know. We're going to seal everything on what. Well, if that's going to be the case, let's open everything up. Let's show everything from Google. Let's show everything from Amazon. Let's show everything from AT&T. Let's show, everything. Let's just put it all out there and let the public have, right to know.
And Chris, let me just interject for a second.
Yeah.
We know this is like so bogus. The public has a First Amendment right to know. Wait a minute. This is the woman who got the trial moved because she claims her client wasn't going to get a fair trial. And that's with everything suppressed, everything sealed. I mean, you can't have it both ways. And I think this is going to be very obvious to the judge, I hope. And, it's galling. I get it. It's, this woman is an artful dodger, in my opinion. No, and she's, we said a couple of years ago, this is like the spaghetti, throw everything up on the wall, see what sticks. And it just as a journalist, it galls me that after 2.5 years of all these documents and court filings and motions that are all under seal, this woman now comes out and says the public has a First Amendment right to know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and meanwhile, back at the ranch, he's sitting back. You know what I want to know? I want to know what they found from the intrusion guy. I want to know what they found on his computer. I want to know what was on his smart TV that the defense investigators took out of that house.
And I want to know, did the prosecutors get the same stuff off that smart TV, or did they leave it and overlook it? And did it, just because we know the defense took it, but how come prosecution didn't take it?
Yeah, this is going to be one of these, people are going to look back. I think we're all going to look back and go, man, the house is gone. There's other things that are gone. I.e., what was on that TV that was so important that Brian Kohberger sent his investigative team back to go get my smart TV out of my apartment. Man, that was a slick move by him. You got to give him an E for effort. Got to give him an E for effort. And who knows where that TV is, and who knows if that information's been destroyed or not. So anyway, buckle up, guys and gals. We're going into Brian Kohberger in 2025, and we'll see what's going to happen here. Another really, really sad case coming up is Rachel Morin. Honey, what do you say about that one?
Yeah, I mean, so much of Rachel Morin's case really, her murder really mirrors Laken Riley's murder. It was, I mean, Laken Riley's murder, as well as Rachel's, horrific, could have been prevented, absolutely, if we're being honest, in terms of why were these, people allowed in this country and then allowed to commit these crimes. Laken Riley was killed in February of 2024, and they got a conviction at the end of 2024. So that seems like swift justice. And Rachel's case is taking a little bit longer. Of course, there was a 10-month manhunt while they were looking for her killer, who was an illegal person here from El Salvador. He faces multiple charges, first-degree murder and rape. And Chris, you may have seen this. His defense, Rachel's killer's defense team, is seeking a venue change. I hope they don't get one. Listen, Lake and Riley, these were national cases. They were talked about. And, just my personal opinion, I hope, because we don't want this delayed. The families deserve justice, as in all of these cases. And we know that could delay this guy's trial. And by the way, he's facing life without the possibility of parole in Rachel's murder.
Yeah, and if we think about that with the request for a venue change, I mean, what's the motivation behind that, right? I mean, if you look at the county where this trial is going to be held, it's an extremely conservative county for Maryland. And if they want a venue change, then they're trying to move it out. Remember, Congress just voted on the Laken Riley Act, and if you can believe it, there were hundreds of Congress people that said no, we don't want this to happen. And I'm not getting political here, but I'm just saying, is that the reflection in the defense that they're trying to move it out of a conservative arena into a more liberal arena in the defense's favor? It's certainly, if Congress was any reflection of the Laken Riley Act, then it certainly will reflect in the court system down the lane here. And this guy may be that first shot across the bow, where he's being used as a political pawn. And the justice for Laken and justice for Rachel may not be had, but it will. They'll convict him. It'll be a done deal. And that's just my 2 cents. That he's innocent until proven guilty, of course, but at the same time, the brutality of that crime and other things. You might as well throw some toast into the chat here. My prediction is he's going to be toast. So let's go into Larry Millete, Mr. Voodoo Man himself.
So, Chris, before you head down that road, that is the Maya Millete case.
Mm-hmm.
What we thought was pretty interesting. So there were, just as kind of a reminder for everybody, post-COVID, here in the true crime world, we saw what felt like an uptick of marital murders, right? Husbands killing wives and wives killing husbands. And now a number of these cases have finally come to the courtroom, are coming to trial. And it just so happens that these are cases that we've followed for, now it's been a couple of years, like since 2021, since we started our channel. And, I guess on one hand, it's been a long time for a lot of these families that have been fighting for justice, like Maya Millete's family, her sister Mary Chris, and Mary Chris's husband Richard. You've got Deian Warner and that case out of Michigan. She was a Michigan mom and grandmother. And then in Utah, you've got a couple cases of the wives killing the husbands. Like we've got the Corey Richens case that's going to be coming up. So, yeah, KJ, yeah, definitely something. COVID, although let's not blame COVID. I mean, yes, COVID was horrible for not just people in our country, but people around the world. And I call it the post-COVID era because these killings happened in the post-COVID era that we were in. But, I guess thank goodness justice is coming, even though the wait and the fight in some cases has been a number of years.
Yeah, so Maya's case involves her husband, who was becoming more and more possessive and somewhat violent towards her initially. but it was more control issues. I mean, she was going to go out, with her girlfriends, and he would be thinking that she was having an affair on him at the time. And, some of the things, ended up just crazy. He would show up when she was out at lunch and with her girlfriends, and all of a sudden he'd be there in the restaurant. And it came out that, he had put these curses on her. They were living two separate lives is basically what had come down here. And she finally got to the place where she said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And she had gone and met with an attorney, a divorce attorney. And she came home, and that was the last time she was seen. She was seen outside of her house, loading up her car earlier in the day, and that evening, there was ring video, showing that Larry was loading something into his car, but they couldn't figure out what it was. And allegedly, he drove around San Diego County for about 6 hours with his small child in the car. And I think it was a couple of 100 miles that they estimated he could have driven. So her body has never been found yet. So Summer Stephan, who is the DA down in San Diego, who is also a dear friend of ours, Summer took the case on, and who, by the way, if you're from the San Diego area, Summer Stephan is an amazing district attorney. She is just like all over this domestic violence, homicide stuff. She will hammer these guys, and she has a whole professional team in the major crimes unit that handle these types of cases. So the good news is the Millete family is in good hands with the district attorney's office. They have a great relationship together. They're walking hand in hand into the courtroom, which any of these families need to do. That is half of the problem, or that is half of the battle here, to stay trusting of the district attorney's office. And of course, there are some, problems out there. That's a given. Okay? But to Richard and Mary Chris, they have stayed in line, meaning they've trusted the system. And the Chula Vista Police Department did an amazing job investigating this case. And then simultaneously, when they punted it off to the district attorney's office, the DA's office has DAIs, they're called district attorney investigators. They take over if there's any loose ends, and they tighten them up. So, the spellcasters that Larry threw on people didn't work. They got the kids. Richard and Mary Chris got the children back, and the children are thriving under their care. So they got them away from Larry's family. The court finally ordered custody to Richard and Mary Chris, and the kids are doing well. And Larry is on trial for first-degree murder of Maya. Did I miss anything, Karen?
I think it's also worth noting, and I saw in chat that Teresa M. Armide mentioned this, and thank you, Teresa, that a lot of these cases of the wives being killed by their husbands, or allegedly killed by their husbands if they haven't been tried yet, all happened when the couple was either in the process of divorcing, or the wife had decided she was going to leave. And yes, this is the most dangerous time. Domestic violence experts will say, and will educate all of us and say, this is the most difficult, dangerous time for women. And we've had a lot of shows about this. I know so many of you watching and in chat and not in chat have been victims of domestic violence, and you're all survivors. And so unfortunately, a number of these cases that we've seen that have played out, and cases that we're following that are now coming to trial do involve women who wanted to leave, that they had enough with the abuse and the relationship, and they were killed as in the process of trying to leave. Heartbreaking, horrible. But there's a body of statistics and out there that if there's anything to glean from this, it's helping to educate women everywhere to have a plan. Don't go it alone. Understand and know that this could be a dangerous time, and just think about that and put yourself first before if you find yourself in this situation, or if you've got a friend or a family member or a coworker or somebody you know or love, just know that it is a dangerous time. And unfortunately, there's too many examples of these cases that are now coming to trial.
Yeah, and I did a program on this. I think it's in the Behind the Tape playlist, but it's the 8 steps up to domestic violence homicide when these guys start to go off. So if you get a chance and you need to see it, please go into the playlist, watch that video, and hopefully it will give you some ideas. And maybe we need to do a refresher. Karen.
I was just thinking that just for you talking about that video, let's do a refresher this year. It's information that is timeless, that everybody needs to know about, especially with these very public cases coming to trial. You cannot over communicate that message and that information to women everywhere.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So you mentioned Corey Richens real fast. This is a case out of Utah. And, I don't know what was in the water out there on this one, but it was March of 22. Before Corey Richens, her husband dies of a fentanyl overdose. And the state is saying that the wife prepared what they call a Moscow, go figure, mule drink. Okay. And she had laced it with fentanyl. And that the motive for this particular problem, what was the motive again, Karen?
It was a financial motive. So Corey Richens was apparently I guess she was a real estate agent or in real estate, flipping houses, got in way over her head to the tune of $2 million, $3 million. And from what's been released, it sounds like she wasn't forthcoming to her husband, admitting about this huge financial debt that had been weighing her down. Also, in addition, she apparently was having an alleged affair at the same time. So, read into that what you will in terms of what the motive can be. We'll see what prosecution lands on during the trial. But they said there was a very strong financial motive for her. The couple has 3 young boys. And apparently when she, a month or so before she allegedly gave her husband a cocktail laced with fentanyl, she put, I don't know if it was fentanyl or if it was something else, in a turkey sandwich that she had given her husband. And that was kind of a non-starter. Like, he got sick, but he apparently told family members after he ate that turkey sandwich, I think my wife is trying to poison me. And so that's all part of, the evidence in that case.
That's why I don't eat turkey sandwiches. See, she married a fruitcake. She knows it. My sweetheart knows that. But can you imagine that? I mean, she's like,
no, I can't imagine it at all.
Yeah, what a dumb question, or what a dumb comment I made. But I mean, think about that. She's like, today's the day. Da, 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 honey, do you want mayonnaise on this one? Right? and a little of this, boom. Have a great day, hon. Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. So that was the first time. That was the first time?
I believe it was the first time.
Yeah. And then there's a second time in the mule drink, right?
Which apparently worked, which did it. And, that case has made for TV movie written all over it. Exactly, Laura. Um, and where would you even get fentanyl? Yeah, good question, Mimi. So apparently this Corey Richens um, obtained the fentanyl from, I want to say, a former, I don't know if it was a housekeeper or somebody who did some work on her house. And so there's a good
No,
amount of
she was flipping
evidence.
homes. She was flipping homes,
She was flipping
and
home.
she and the contractor ended up having a fling. And
Yeah. And
actually,
in addition, she was in over her head, like millions of dollars. And yes, and she wrote a book. Yes, very good, Melissa. She wrote a children's book about dealing with grief afterwards. And apparently that's when it all came together for investigators and then the prosecution. I believe her arrest was shortly after that. Absolutely, Lori. The husband knew, and you gotta love when the victim is able to leave clues to help solve their murder, you know? And so, thank you, Amy. You're very sweet. Anyway, so that case is one to watch as well. Um, it's gotten some coverage, but of course, when she goes to trial, we'll be hearing more about it.
yeah, Shantae says, can't fentanyl affect you if it's in the air, or does it come in liquid and powder? Well, I know it can be airborne, and there have been, even if you go into these labs, most of the fentanyl coming in this country right now, the materials are being obtained through China, sent through they're called cookers, and they will put it all together and send it up through the border. A lot of it comes through the border, most of it actually, but they also have other ways of getting it in. And yes, it can be, if it gets airborne, you can inhale it, and yes, it will affect you. It will affect you. So our first responders out there, including doctors and nurses and those types of folks, if they ever, have somebody taken to an ER with an OD or something, it's bad, because if the stuff is in the pocket and you just touch it, it can really, really hurt you. But there's a bigger drug coming. I'm just having a thought process that's just lost me what the name of it is, but there's a drug that's hitting Australia right now. Those of our friends in Australia, refresh my memory here. Nizine, there it is. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you. This drug here is going to kill tens of thousands of Americans and people if it does not get stopped. This drug right here, you have to, where right now, if you hit somebody with fentanyl, right, you can hit them with Narcan, and Narcan will pop them, meaning will wake them up. This drug, nitazines, you have to hit them like 10, 15, 10 times with Narcan. And officers don't have enough of it out in the field, nor do the medics. And there's an epidemic going on in Australia, and it's starting to move over here. And here you go. I'm in Australia. It's terrifying. Festivals are setting up drug testing, and it's being found. This is a horrible drug. It's going to make fentanyl look like kindergarten to college. So please, pay attention. pay attention, and we've got to get this under control somehow. We've got to get this under control. I'm sorry, Karen, I didn't mean to go off on that one, but as we were talking about fentanyl, this is the next latest and greatest problem.
Yeah, you know, in hearing about this case, it took me back instead of what's going forward. And yes, fentanyl is, you know,
And so is
it's
nitazines.
it's horrible. It's beyond horrible. And not to be tongue in cheek about any of this, but you, it reminded me of arsenic and old lace. If anybody remembers that old play, I think it was from the 40s. You know, obviously poison is nothing new, right? And we've seen that. I
Sorry.
am so sorry, Kelly. So sorry for your loss. Yeah, it's
You know,
horrible.
this Kelly's pointing out here an epidemic that's been going on in this country far too long. Far too long. You know, there were 58,000 troops that went to war in Vietnam and did not come home. In the United States, I think just last year alone, there were close to 103,000 Americans that died on our streets in this country. If we were to multiply that in a 10-year period, like Vietnam was, we lost a total of 58,000 approximately of war heroes in the Vietnam conflict. But today in America, last year alone, 2024, approximately 100,000 Americans have died from fentanyl poisoning. Now, set aside the personalities. These are human beings. These are people. And if we were to multiply that in a 10-year conflict, we've lost over 1 million people in the United States of America. So here's the question. Where's the war? The war is here. Law enforcement, that's why one of the concepts is the thin blue line. If you take that line and erase it, the war's with everybody. And Kelly and her family is suffering because of the opioid epidemics. Thoughts, Karen?
It has to be a national conversation. We have to talk about it as a society, take it a lot more seriously, and get the right, you know, the right interdiction. And, you know, we can do it. We can do it. It's going to take a lot because fentanyl comes in from other countries. It's law enforcement. It's dumped at the feet of law enforcement. And a lot of times it goes beyond the scope of law enforcement. But we as a country have to get serious about taking it seriously, understanding how tragic those numbers are, and actually wanting to do something about it. We can do it. People can set their minds to it and make it happen. We've done it many times for many other things, many other societies' ills, and this has helped. Excuse me. This has reached everybody. There's nobody who's unaffected by the fentanyl crisis. I don't care where you were from, where you were raised, where you live. It's everybody. And we have to have, as I said, a national conversation started about this with the intent to get rid of it, that we're not going to tolerate this. We can't tolerate these numbers of our family members, friends, loved ones, you know, succumbing to this. That's what I think.
So here's an interesting, thank you, Connie, for your service here. I'm a psych nurse and I have also done addiction in the past. I check bags and all the time. Many others do too. So scary, you know, and these comments are so powerful they're so powerful here. Everybody has had an experience somewhere, I would submit to you, that around this problem, either a distant family member, a friend, a relative, a direct relative. It's just, this is a problem that is killing hundreds of thousands of people. And whether we want to face it or not, we have to face it, because ultimately it could be your child. It could be somebody, who thinks they're taking a pain medication, and it's a pain medication that is just so powerful that it shuts down the central nervous system and the breathing apparatuses, and their heart stops. This is a national crisis, and it has to be taken that way. It has to be taken that way, because, as Ellie says here, addiction does kill. But not everybody's addicted when they're first taking it. Their tolerance may be not high enough, and they may have gotten it from a friend. Say, here, take this, it will help you. And they take it and they don't realize that, it's maybe methadone. It may be, methadone's in tablet form now. They used to give it in World War II on the battleground. And then the pharmaceutical companies had to keep up with oxycodone. So, they released methadone onto the streets years ago. It used to be a liquid, where you could go in, they called it the juice program, and you had a 24-hour juice card, because the plasma life was 24 hours, meaning it would stay in your blood system for 24 hours. And if you were a heroin addict trying to kick the needle, because you were chasing the needle for years and years and years, you'd go down, you get your methadone card, and you get your juice card, and every morning you would show up at a certain time and, hit the juice, and you'd be good for 24 hours. Okay. And people can function that way. And then doctors can wean them off of it, right? By lowering the doses. But oxycodone hit the streets, and then, late 90s, the FDA says, well, okay, fine. These pharmaceutical companies that had methadone says, well, here, okay. And they started kicking methadone out on the streets. And we started seeing the opioid crisis, and people starting to die from that was, pretty critical. And then that turned into, the oxycodone epidemics in Florida, where you could go to, your nearest doctor that would write you a script for opioid. And now, though, we have progressed to the point where fentanyl is on the street, and we're watching people die around us. But this next one, these nizines, I can't pronounce it correctly, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. God didn't give me a clear voice sometimes. And anyway, long story short, this next one, please, it's going to be really bad. And I'd love to hear from more people in Australia that are dealing with this. I know there's a lot of fear in terms of the law enforcement community. There's a lot of discussion around, not fear, that's a bad word. There's a lot of discussion around this particular problem. So
it's probably frustration more than anything with law enforcement.
Yeah.
Frustrated that it's here, frustrated they can't do more, frustrated that they can be susceptible to the smells of it, and it's a scary thing, but scary not in the non-fear way of scary.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Deian Warner, let's jump back into a couple more of these. We've got Deian Warner. Do you miss Dale?
Yeah. His trial is slated for September, so it's a little bit later in the year. And yeah, let's have a minute and remember Deian Warner, his wife. Deian Warner, we've covered this. If you're not familiar with her murder case, we've covered this pretty much from the beginning. She was a 52-year-old mom and grandma from Tipton, Michigan, and she was getting ready to leave Dale and file for divorce in April of 2021, post-COVID, and she disappeared. Her remains were found on the property. So she and her husband, I think it was more her, were running this family farm business. They have a lot of acreage out there in Tipton, Michigan. And, she disappeared, and her family, her brother Greg Hardy and his wife and their whole family from the beginning really pushed law enforcement. You guys were along for the ride, many of you, and knew how we covered this. They were pushing to get Michigan State Police to investigate Dee's disappearance as a murder. And anyway, her remains were found on their property last year, and her death was finally ruled a suicide. Now, we still don't know exactly how she died. That we believe will come out during the trial. And again, it can't really be understated that, Dee's brother, Greg Hardy, and his family fought like heck to get this case brought to the right investigators to investigate it, to take it seriously. And Dee's husband, Dale, was arrested last year, and he's being held in connection with a long list of charges, including murder.
Yeah, I think, remember Dale said that her curling iron was missing, or a hair dryer, one of those two.
It was a curling iron. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, remember, if we're going back, remember some of the details. So she supposedly left her very expensive wedding ring, I think $50,000 wedding ring. You're very sweet, Lori. She left her $50,000 wedding ring on the desk of their office. He claims that she left her she took her curling iron, right? Is that what?
Yeah,
if I'm remembering it right?
Yeah, go ahead.
And Chris, you actually talked to him and had a conversation with him, but this guy claims his wife ran off to Mexico, or I think it was like the Caribbean or something like that.
Mazatlan.
Where?
Mazatlan.
Mexico? Okay, so place in Mazatlan, nobody bought it, nobody believed it. It just took law enforcement a couple of years in total to finally make an arrest.
Yeah, and at first, so Greg Hardy and Parker and Shelley and just a lot of people up there in Michigan were like, no. One, she wouldn't leave her daughter. Remember, she had a 10-year-old daughter. That ain't going to happen. I've never known a mama bear to completely walk away from their daughter when they have a multi-million-dollar business and then just disappear one morning. And then he shows up with her wedding ring, like you said, Karen, in his pocket. And he says, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you. And Dale tells the kids that, oh, yeah, your mother left this wedding ring and said she was taken off. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to tell you, she took her curling iron with her. Okay. Immediately, Greg Hardy was like, well, that doesn't sound right. And he started his own investigation. And one day, Billy was on 48 Hours, I think, with Maya Millete. And Shelley saw him and reached out to Catherine, I think, one of the amazing other human beings in that case, said, hey, you need to get hold of this guy. And one day Billy got a phone call, and it was the Hardy clan up there and the connections. And next thing you know it, he calls me and he says, hey, I'm going up to Michigan. I'm going to check out and help this family up there. Are you in? And I said, yeah, go up and tell me what's going on and I'll show up. So long story short, he goes up there, sorts through everything, kind of makes sense of it. I go up there, and one of our things that we wanted to see is, what's the layout here, right? What's the farm look like, et cetera, et cetera. What access points does he have? Where could the contact points be? Where was she last seen? We want to see the videos of all the surveillance footage because they have a tremendous amount. It will come out in court. They have a tremendous amount of video where you can actually see, Dale moving around on a forklift and all this other stuff. And Billy and I were like, well, I want to go see the field where the cops were buried, where they were digging up. And so we go out into this field, and next thing you know it, this truck starts coming through the mud and the dirt towards us. And I said to Billy, and this was kind of funny, I said, hey, I'm just going to play him like I'm an insurance guy out here. And, Greg, you kind of pawn off onto me that, you're out here checking, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he pulls up, and I'm like, Inspector Clouseau for 30 seconds where, I'm the insurance. And I said to him, he goes, who are you guys? I said, I'm just with the insurance company. He looks right at me. He goes, no, you're not. And man, and he just looked right at Dale or at Greg. And Billy looks over at me like, well, that didn't work. Right.
Okay, Chris, I want to interrupt you because I'm looking at chat. If I misspoke and said suicide, I apologize. I'm seeing in chat, it's not a suicide. It clearly wasn't.
You didn't say that.
Okay. All right. We're just clearing that up.
Yeah, no. And there's Buddy. Everybody see him behind me? He's rubbing up.
Buddy.
There's Bud's.
Yeah. And so, and just to be clear, Dee's remains, after they were found on the property, her death was ruled a homicide. So clear that up. But anyway, so you actually had a confrontation with Dale Warner out on the property when you were with Billy and law enforcement investigating this.
Yep.
That had to be
actually Dale had a confrontation
weird.
with Greg. Greg didn't say anything, but what we saw was him spin to 150,000 feet in his anger. And I later told Billy, I said, that's what Dee saw right there. And, because we're used to it, right? And, I've seen that look 1,000 times. And so, yes, and do the math. And Ellie, I think you're doing the math. I agree. Okay, I agree. And next thing you know it, Greg is just on it. We have some meetings with the FBI. We meet with Michigan State Police, a variety of other folks. And the brother, over time, starts doing some more math, and he goes, this tanker looks weird. And next thing you know it, they're cutting the tanker over, and there's her body entombed in this tanker. So, kudos to Greg Warner, to Greg Hardy and Shelley and Catherine and all the family up there. They're the ones that solved this case. They are the ones that solved this case. And God bless them, because wouldn't you love a brother like that is just unrelenting? And the whole community came together. They put the unfortunate, the chief and the sheriff under pressure to do something. I think the lead investigator initially was out of his league. They wouldn't swallow their pride. Billy, myself, we came in, put a little package together, pretty much handed it to him. I mean, we even put a recorder on a masseuse. And those, if you want to see all that stuff, how it unfolded, you can see that in the playlist that we have put together where when it started and how it started with Greg. And so they solved the case. And that's a great thing when you see a family, as powerful in terms of commitment to do it. And there's a lot of families like that out there.
And I would also add on the Warner case, they had tremendous support from their small, close-knit community. They really did. They had held rallies that we went to a couple of them. People held signs outside of one of the courthouses in that area. And it was the family at the tip of the spear. It was the community. It was a huge effort. And I agree with you. That really took a family and a community to put down the pressure and to get resolution for that family, for that case.
Yeah. So last one, a nurse in Maryland whose husband was an IRS agent.
I think you're confusing that case. That was another one. That's another one that didn't make our court calendar, but it may very well also come up. Chris, let me talk about this Naresh Bhatt case. Maybe can you do a share screen and just grab something so people can kind of see something about this case? This one you guys may not be familiar with. It's been on like Court TV and perhaps News Nation. I'm not sure, but anyway, this is another we'll call it domestic case where there was a couple. I believe they're from Nepal, and they moved here to Maryland. And she worked as a nurse. She was only 28 years old. She's a wife, a mother of a brand new baby, a 1-year-old, and she was working as a nurse in a hospital. So she had a group of friends that probably helped acclimate her when her and her husband moved from Nepal to the United States. Anyway, there is alleged abuse, some domestic violence on this one, and he is now in jail, charged with her murder. This particular case is like another one. Like, she didn't show up for work. Her coworkers were really kind of suspicious. They called police. Police went over to the family's home, and you could see on police body cam video his interview with the husband, who was holding their 1-year-old baby, like at the door. This case, it's very different. It felt a little bit like Maya Millette's case, only in the fact that we don't have the body. Am I right, Chris? I don't know if this woman's body has been
right. She's not
recovered. Okay, she hasn't been.
He's on video throwing bags in various places.
Yeah, exactly. And so this case, I think got more coverage on the East Coast, maybe rather than across the nation. I don't believe Outdoorsy RN that they have found her body. They did go in the home with multiple search warrants at different times, and there's blood evidence on the carpet that they said it looked like a body had been moved. And so this one's coming up in September, and we felt this one, this is another one of these, domestic situations. And it's coming up. Yeah, that's him. That's the husband who's behind bars awaiting trial, charged with his wife's alleged murder. He's also charged with defiling and concealing a dead body. So this one is another super heartbreaker of a case.
He's in custody now. It was it took a while to get him in custody, but they went back to the house and they shot Blue Star and luminol into the bathtub, into the drains, as well as into the bedrooms. And they had positive for human blood. And then the DNA was hers.
And I would say in this case, if the victim here, her name was Mamta Bafal Bhatt was her married name, Bhatt. Her support, her advocates were for her co-workers who were other RNs like her, who worked with her at the hospital. The baby is with her family now. Okay, well that's good. But this couple moved here from Nepal, and so this victim would not have had a support system of any sort here, at least family. So thank goodness she has amazing coworkers, all nurses, and they really pushed law enforcement. They really kept the case pushed in front of law enforcement. And as we said, it did result in the arrest of her husband. Again, this trial is coming up, not until September. But yeah, there seems to be quite a bit of evidence here in this case.
If we look at the cases that we've covered here this evening, and we think about it, how many of these are domestic? Karen, what was?
Maybe half. Maybe half of these are.
Let's see here. We've got Crystal. That's domestic because of a boyfriend. Rachel.
Right. And just to say, you're making a distinction between a stranger and somebody known to the victim.
Right.
Or who was in a domestic situation.
Right.
With the perpetrator.
Yeah. Right. Corey. Lori, because she's on trial now for her ex. Crystal. Larry, Dale, and this one. That's just what we've covered tonight. People out of control. Something's got, buddies down at my feet here. And of course, Barry Morphew, he's out there still in the environment. By the way, I'll call it. Well, I called it recently. His attorney has left him. They've divorced because he ran out of money. But my inside track tells me there's another big shot coming in who's going to do it pro bono just for the publicity. So Barry's going to get another high-powered attorney out of Colorado that's going to represent him if it ever keeps going. So we'll see what's going to happen with him, but man, I hope they bring that guy to trial.
Well, let's remind everybody, it's been well over a year. Suzanne Morphew's remains were found September, I'm going to get this right, September 2023, right? Yeah, so September 2024 was a year, and so we're over a year now, right? Yeah. So maybe 15 months ago, something like that.
Yep.
I've never been that great with math, but I want to make sure I have that right. And so we're waiting to hear from the district attorney in Colorado, and the district that has this case, to make a decision.
Yeah, and just tell everybody who we talked to the other day, and she's doing great. And she's just been having a couple of family issues that have been resolved, and she's on her way back.
Let's maybe hold on that.
Okay. All right. All right. We'll hold on that.
It's a good thing, but we're just going to have this person have a little more privacy.
Okay. My sweetheart gets the final word, and then I think we should go to Hawaii. What do you say, Karen?
That sounds great. I just want to wrap up and say that in talking about these cases and these trials, our first support goes to, if you will, the victims and the victims' families. So many of them have been waiting for so long for justice, and even just in a courtroom to face the accuser and to get justice. And so we support them, these families. They've been going through so much, and we pray that 2025 is a year that at least one group of victims and their families can get some justice.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.